The better way that was in Captain Blood's mind was the way that he'd already had proposed to Wolverstone. Whether the men in the panic Ogle had aroused among them would take a different view from Wolverstone's, he did not know, but he saw quite clearly now that if they consented, they would not on that account depart from their intention in the matter of Miss Bishop. They would make of Blood's own surrender merely an additional card in this game against the governor of Jamaica. "It's through her that we're in this trap," Ogle stormed on. "Through her and through you. It was to bring her to Jamaica that you risked all our lives, and we're not going to lose our lives as long as there's a chance to make ourselves safe through her." He was turning again to the helmsman below when Blood's grip tightened on his arm. Ogle wrenched it free with an oath. But Blood's mind was now made up. He had found the only way, and repellent though it might be to him, he must take it. "That is a desperate chance," he cried. "Mine is the safest and easy way. Wait!" He leaned over the rail. "Put the helm down," he bade Pitt. "Heave her to, and signal to them to send a boat." A silence of astonishment fell upon the ship, of astonishment and suspicion at this sudden yielding. But Pitt, although he shared it, was prompt to obey. His voice rang out, giving the necessary orders, and, after an instant's pause, a score of hands sprang to execute them. Came the creaking of the blocks and the rattle of the slatting sails as they swung aweather, and Captain Blood turned and beckoned Lord Julian forward. His lordship, after a moment's hesitation, advanced in surprise and mistrust, a mistrust shared by Miss Bishop, who, like his lordship and all else aboard, though in a different way, had been taken aback by Blood's sudden submission to the demand to lie to. Standing now at the rail, with Lord Julian beside him, Captain Blood explained himself. Briefly and clearly he announced to all the object of Lord Julian's voyage to the Caribbean, and he informed them of the offer which yesterday Lord Julian had made to him. "That offer I rejected, as his lordship will tell you, deeming myself affronted by it. Those of you who have suffered under the rule of King James will understand me. But now, in the desperate case in which we find ourselves, outsailed and likely to be outfought, as Ogle has said, I am ready to take the way of Morgan, to accept the king's commission, and shelter us all behind it." It was a thunderbolt that for a moment left them all dazed. Then Babel was reenacted. The main body of them welcomed the announcement, as only men who have been preparing to die can welcome a new lease of life. But many could not resolve one way or the other until they were satisfied upon several questions, and chiefly upon one which was voiced by Ogle. "Will Bishop respect the commission when you hold it?" It was Lord Julian who answered. "It will go very hard with him if he attempts to flout the king's authority. And though he should dare attempt it, be sure that his own officers will not dare to do other than oppose him." "Aye," said Ogle, "that is true." But there were some who were still in open and frank revolt against the course. Of these was Wolverstone, who at once proclaimed his hostility. "All rotten hell if I ever serves the king," he bawled in a great rage. But Blood quieted him, and those who thought as he did. "No man need follow me into the king's service who is reluctant. That is not in the bargain. What is in the bargain is that I accept this service with such of you as may choose to follow me. Don't think I accept it willingly. For myself, I am entirely of Wolverstone's opinion. I accept it as the only way to save us all from the certain destruction into which my own act may have brought us. And even those of you who do not choose to follow me shall share the immunity of all, and shall afterwards be free to depart. Those are the terms upon which I sell myself to the king. Let Lord Julian, the representative of the Secretary of State, say whether he agrees to them." Prompt, eager, and clear came his lordship's agreement, and that was practically the end of the matter. Lord Julian, the butt now of good-humoured ribald jests and half-derisive acclamations, plunged away to his cabin for the commission, secretly rejoicing at the turn of events which enabled him so creditably to discharge the business on which he had been sent. Meanwhile, the boatswain signalled to the Jamaican ships to send a boat, and the men in the waist broke their ranks, and went noisily flocking to line the bulwarks and view the great stately vessels that were racing down towards them. As Ogle left the quarter-deck, Blood turned and came face to face with Miss Bishop. She had been observing him with shining eyes, but at sight of his dejected countenance and the deep frown that scarred his brow, her own expression changed. She approached him with a hesitation entirely unusual to her. She set a hand lightly upon his arm. "You have chosen wisely, sir," she commended him, "however as much it is against your inclinations." He looked with gloomy eyes upon her for whom he had made the sacrifice. "I owed it to you, or I thought I did," he said. She did not understand. "Your resolve delivered me from horrible danger," she admitted, and she shivered at the memory of it. "But I do not understand why you should have hesitated when first it was proposed to you. It is an honourable service." "King James's?" he sneered. "England's," she corrected him in reproof. "The country is all, sir, the sovereign not. King James will pass, others will come and pass. England remains, to be honourably served by her sons, whatever rancour they may hold against the man who rules her in their time." He showed some surprise. Then he smiled a little. "Shrewd advocacy." He approved it. "You should have spoken to the crew." Then, the note of irony deepening in his voice, "Do you suppose now that this honourable service might redeem one who was a pirate and a thief?" Her glance fell away. Her voice faltered a little in replying. "If he needs redeeming, perhaps he is being judged too harshly." The blue eyes flashed, and the firm lips relaxed their grim set. "Why, if he thinks that," he said, considering her, an odd hunger in his glance, "life might have its uses after all, and even the service of the King James might become tolerable." Looking beyond her across the water, he observed a boat putting off to one of the great ships, which, hove to now, were rocking gently some 300 yards away. Abruptly his manner changed. He was like one recovering, taking himself in hand again. "If you will go below and get your gear and your woman, you shall presently be sent aboard as one of the ships of the fleet." He pointed to the boats as he spoke. She left him, and thereafter with Wolverstone leaning upon the rail, he watched the approach of that boat, manned by a dozen sailors and commanded by a scarlet figure, seated stiffly in the stern sheets. He levelled his telescope upon that figure. "It'll not be Bishop himself," said Wolverstone, between questions and assertion. "No," Blood closed his telescope. "I don't know who that is." "Ha!" Wolverstone vented an ejaculation of sneering mirth. "For all his eagerness, Bishop would be none so willing to come himself. He's been aboard this hulk afore. We made him swim for it that time. He'll have his memories, so he sends a deputy." This deputy proved to be an officer named Calvary, a vigorous, self-sufficient fellow, comparatively fresh from England, whose manner it made it clear that he came fully instructed by Colonel Bishop upon the matter of how to handle the pirates. His air, as he stepped into the waist of the Arabella, was haughty, truculent, and disdainful. Blood, the king's commission now in his pocket, and Lord Julian standing beside him, waited to receive him, and Captain Calvary was a little taken aback at finding himself confronted by two men so very different outwardly from anything he had expected. But he lost none of his haughty pose, and scarcely deigned a glance at the swarm of fierce, half-naked fellows lounging in a semicircle to form a background. "Good day to you, sir," Blood hailed him pleasantly. "I have the honour to give you welcome aboard the Arabella. My name is Blood, Captain Blood, at your service. You may have heard of me." Captain Calvary stared hard. The airy manner of this redoubtable buccaneer was hardly what he had looked for in such a desperate fellow, compelled to ignominious surrender. A thin, sour smile broke on the officer's haughty lips. You'll ruffle it to the gallows, no doubt," he said contemptuously. "I suppose it is after the fashion of your kind. Meanwhile, it's your surrender I require, my man, not your impudence." Captain Blood appeared surprised, pained. He turned in appeal to Lord Julian. "Do you hear that now? And did you ever hear the like? And what did I tell you? You see, the young gentleman's under a misapprehension entirely. Perhaps it'll save broken bones if your lordship explains just who and what I am." Lord Julian advanced a step and bowed perfunctorily and rather disdainfully to that very disdainful but now dumbfounded officer. Pitt, who watched the scene from the quarter-deck rail, tells us that his lordship was as grave as a parson at a hanging, but I suspect this gravity for a mask under which Lord Julian was secretly amused. "I have the honour to inform you, sir," he said stiffly, "that Captain Blood holds a commission in the King's service under the seal of my Lord Sunderland, His Majesty's Secretary of State." Captain Calvary's face empurpled, his eyes bulged. The buccaneers in the background chuckled and crowed and swore among themselves in their relish of this comedy. For a long moment Calvary stared in silence at his lordship, observing the costly elegance of his dress, his air of calm assurance, and his cold, fastidious speech, all of which savoured distinctly of the great world to which he belonged. "And who the devil may you be?" he exploded at last. Colder still, and more distant than ever, grew his lordship's voice. "You're not very civil, sir, as I have already noticed. My name is Wade, Lord Julian Wade. I am His Majesty's envoy at these barbarous parts, and my Lord Sunderland's near kinsman. Colonel Bishop has been notified of my coming." The sudden change in Calvary's manner at Lord Julian's mention of his name showed that the notification had been received, and that he had knowledge of it. I believe that he has," said Calvary, between doubt and suspicion. "That is, that he has been notified of the coming of Lord Julian Wade, but aboard this ship?" The officer made a gesture of helplessness, and surrendered to his bewilderment, fell abruptly silent. "I was coming out on the Royal Mary. That was what we were advised. But the Royal Mary fell a victim to a Spanish privateer, and I might never have arrived at all but for the gallantry of Captain Blood, who rescued me." Light broke upon the darkness of Calvary's mind. "I see, I understand. I will take leave to doubt it." His lordship's tone abated nothing of its asperity. "But that can wait. If Captain Blood will show you his commission, perhaps that will set all doubts at rest, and we may proceed. I shall be glad to reach Port Royal." Captain Blood thrust a parchment under Calvary's bulging eyes. The officer scanned it, particularly the seals and signature. He stepped back, a baffled, impotent man. He bowed helplessly. "I must return to Colonel Bishop for my orders," he informed them. At that moment a lane was opened in the ranks of the men, and through this came Miss Bishop, followed by her octoroon woman. Over his shoulder Captain Blood observed her approach. "Perhaps, since Colonel Bishop is with you, you will convey his niece to him. Miss Bishop was aboard the Royal Mary also, and I rescued her together with his lordship. She will be able to acquaint her uncle with the details of that, and of the present state of affairs." Swept thus from surprise to surprise, Captain Calvary could do no more than bow again. "As for me," said Lord Julian, with intent to make Miss Bishop's departure free from all interference on the part of the buccaneers, "I shall remain aboard the Arabella until we reach Port Royal. My compliments to Colonel Bishop. Say that I look forward to making his acquaintance there." End of chapter.